What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Technically, still morning. Usually go live with these on Thursday, but life got in the way. We're doing Friday today. Going to be talking about week 3 daily fantasy for the NFL, DFS. Let's jump into it. Thanks, everyone, for being here. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. You can find this article at beatbestball.com. I will put that in the chat for you. So we just got through week 3. Got had Aaron Rodgers, had the Pats last night. Aaron Rodgers looking back. Good morning. What's up? So I'll update this article always with a link to me reading it. But yeah, I wanted to start looking at this article with the team that won the Millie Maker the year before, or the week before. This week, Sam Pitt 16 took it down. He had a Daniel Jones and neighbor stack. He paid up for elite tight end. That's something I talked about getting unique. Had 3 running backs, including a chalky Jordan Mason and J.K. Dobbins, who were both cheap. And then Alvin Kamara and Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 gold star GPP plays. And then had Chris Godwin, just a nutted spot there. Slot wide receivers have been getting there against Detroit, although they did play Chris Godwin and Cooper Kupp. And the Cardinals D, which was cheap and also favored. So it was a Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors stack, a 4% owned Alvin Kamara, a 4% owned Marvin Harrison Jr., and Trey McBride at 7%. So he stacked the Cardinals without the quarterback by paying down for Daniel Jones. I always think this is viable. So good to see it win here. Chalk Jordan Mason. Played the cheapest defense. Usually we want to punt off defenses. And then Dobbins and Godwin were the high scoring one-offs. I said, like I wrote about in my leverage spots, this lineup paid up for tight end. Of course, McBride fell on a touchdown in the end zone. He built a more balanced lineup. That's something else I talked about last week where people were trying to jam Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, and co. So by building more balanced, you just competed against less people. And he played a running back in a timeshare. That's something else I talked about last week. It was Dobbins. Dobbins isn't a timeshare. Like Gus Edwards is playing, getting like an equal rush attempt. But of course, everyone preferred Dobbins. He was a chalky one. Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he was a gold star GPP play last week. I swapped onto him, but yeah, didn't have Kamara, so didn't get anything going there. I always think it's viable to game stack without the QB, especially when the quarterback's expensive and you pay down. And then you obviously needed Alvin Kamara to win. And perhaps there's something to be said about playing more veteran players early in the season whose ownership should come in low because they're boring players, kind of. They're not as exciting. People don't want to play them. So when you're going to get low ownership on these guys, seems appealing. And also, people playing Kamara, I would say they were perhaps getting, it's an edge to be ahead of the curve about how good a team is. And so the Saints clearly seem very good right now. They beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys couldn't stop the run last year at all either. Remember, James Cook went for 40 against them. So yeah, I think Kamara was pretty sharp. I wasn't there. And then Neighbors was still too cheap. As Daniel Jones, has proven, every quarterback is playable against the Commanders. He only had 180 passing yards. Jones did. Most of it flew through Neighbors, but Neighbors just seen an insane target share. Guys, before we go forward, if you could help me out, I've launched a chess channel. Don't worry, still going to be doing fantasy football content, but wanted to start sharing my chess channel. It is Liam Teaches Chess. I shared the link here. If you guys could go over and subscribe to this channel, whether you like chess or not, really would help me out. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers there. But yeah, I'm going to be sharing the chess tournaments I play here. Uploaded a nearly hour video going through a recent tournament I played. Also going to be streaming here sometimes. Just might stream later tonight. Just hang out, play chess. Don't always want to do fantasy football. So check out Liam Teaches Chess. I'll also put the link to subscribe in the link below. Appreciate you guys. So every week we start this article by looking at dog bowl drafts, which take place on Underdog Fantasy. You can use promo code Cheslium if you're not up and running on Underdog Fantasy. And I think this is just a good way to get another input of how the field is valuing players aside from strictly what the salary is, what the projection is on the player, etc. There is a little bit of game theory at play here. Trying to find the camera that will show this. No. No, that is way too small. Okay, let's just do this. Let's share my screen again. But yeah, I think there we go. I think it's just a nice visual. It is half point PPR, so it's a little bit different. And there is some game theory at play where creating a unique combo is important just to compete against less people. But I still think it's a nice visual. So here's the board. You can pause the video or check this article out at beatbestball.com if you would like. And I just said some things that stood out to me. Brandon Ayuk, Chris Olave, and Zay Flowers all went as second-round picks in these drafts. They're too cheap on DraftKings with the salaries at $6,200, $6,300, and $6,800 respectively. Excitement could not be lower for Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Kyron Williams. Even Zach Charbonnet went ahead of them in this draft. They're all kind of expensive on DraftKings, meaning they should be low owned. So these guys are kind of like arbitrage Chimera plays from last week where they're expensive, they're veterans. We don't think their teams are as good as the Saints potentially could be, but they should all be low owned because of that, especially with Charbonnet and Jordan Mason looking like mega chalk. So getting these guys at 4% owned, if they go for 40, that's the Chimera thesis right there. And then, yeah, Jordan Mason just continues to be too cheap. He goes as a first-round pick, and he's $6,200. His price on FanDuel, by the way, is like $8,300, where Zach Charbonnet is still $6,700. So they bumped his salary by $1,000. I'm assuming their algorithm just doesn't let them bump salary so much. But now Jordan Mason's not even competing with Deebo Samuel, so too cheap there. Implied team totals. This is via Fantasy Labs. Not going to read off everyone here, but the top 5 are Lions at 27.25, the Saints at 26.25, the 49ers at 25.5, the Ravens at 24.5, and the Texans and Cardinals are tied at 24.25. The bottom 5, Giants at 16, Chargers at 17, who could be without Herbert, Broncos at 17.25, Panthers at 17.5, and the Packers at 17.75. Highest over-unders, Lions and Cardinals, spouting a 51.5 total. Don't see totals over 50 too much anymore. Eagles and Saints, 49.5. Ravens and Cowboys, 48. Texans and Vikings, 46. And the 49ers and Rams, the 5th highest game total, all the way down to 44. So obviously these games are the most appealing, but every once in a while we see these 44s spout out. Thank you, Brian. Checking in. So top plays, quarterback, Brock Purdy. He's $6K, and all of his teammates are cheap and affordable. I wrote this, by the way, before Kittle was questionable to play, but playing Purdy with 2 of Mason, Ayuk, and George Kittle, or if Kittle doesn't play, Mason, Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings, I guess, feels very tempting to me. Purdy's also leading the league in passing at the moment, and the Rams are a disaster everywhere on defense. Jalen Hurts at 7,300. Hurts has rushed the ball 26 times this year for 118 yards. That's kind of crazy, guys. 13 attempts a game and a touchdown. One of those games was in Brazil where everyone was slipping on the turf. In a game we hopefully get a shootout for, second highest over-under, I could see Hurts going off. Hurts is closer to an 8K quarterback if he put up some big games already. Kyler at 6,900. Kyler certainly seems back and now gets a home game against Detroit, which profiles as a pass funnel thus far. He's only ran the ball 10 times this year, but has over 110 rushing yards. So 5 rushing attempts each game, over 110 rushing yards. Derek Carr, who's 5,800. Carr's led 2 blowouts where his team put up 40-plus points each time. He's easy to stack and cheap. I think there's room for even more from Carr in a closer game. Despite the Eagles' defensive additions, their secondary and defense as a whole doesn't look much better to start the year. Dak Prescott, who is 6,600. The Ravens are allowing the most passing yards in the league, and they played a game against the Raiders. They're also allowing the least rushing yards in the league. They're a pure pass funnel at the moment, and Prescott and the Cowboys should be eager to book a win after last week's stinker. CJ Stroud, who is 7,100. The Vikings defense seems improved after upsetting the 49ers, but they still profile as a pass funnel. Stroud and his wide receivers are in play every week. We just need a team to push them to pass more. Jared Goff, who is 6,500. The Lions have the highest implied total and are facing a pretty bad Cardinals defense. Goff's only thrown one touchdown on the year, but when that changes, he's capable of winning tournaments for you. Lamar, who's 7,500. The Cowboys continue to be beat up on the ground. If it's not Derrick Henry, it could be Lamar going off. The Ravens should be eager to notch their first win on the season, and the Cowboys are 30th in points allowed, which is obviously skewed from the Saints stinker they played. But Anthony Richardson, who is 6,700. He shouldn't be too popular after putting up his first fantasy stinker last week. The Bears defense does seem legit to me who they play, but we know Richardson's capable of going off any week. And then Will Levis, 5,200. I think a chalker answer here is like Geno at 56, but I chose Levis. Green Bay somehow 26th in passing yards allowed, and they faced Hurts and Richardson. Not two super pass happy guys. Levis also faced off against two top defenses in the Jets and Bears. I like his chances to have a better day against the Packers. So, yeah, I think, Levis put up points against the Jets and the Bears defense. Now he gets the Packers. Seems like a pretty good punted off option. Running back, Devon Achane, who is 7K. I view Achane as quarterback proof, and Skylar Thompson loves to target his running backs. He has back-to-back games of 7 targets apiece. Jordan Mason, who is 6,200. Far too cheap, and now the 49ers will be without Deebo Samuel. The Rams and maybe even Kittle. The Rams defense is 31st in points allowed and 30th in rushing yards allowed. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's been a first-round pick in fantasy and has seen 7 and 6 targets to date. Also playing the highest total game of the week. So we've got Gibbs has put up 17 PPR points. Doubt he'll be super popular. He hasn't had a nuke game yet. It's coming. Zach Charbonnet, who's 6K. He was an unquestioned workhorse for the Seahawks last week and now gets a Dolphins defense that is easier to run on than pass on. He's also involved in the passing game. So, yeah, no Ken Walker. Charbonnet should be a workhorse. Going to be involved in the passing game. Pretty much a no-brainer at 6K. Tony Pollard, who is 6K. Tajay Spears likely plays, but it's possible he doesn't. He's seen 17 carries and 6 targets and 16 carries and 4 targets in 2 games played. So, pretty elite workload for Pollard. Some of the workload was skewed from Spears getting knocked out of the game. But yeah, pretty cheap, 6K. Alvin Kamara, who is 7,500. He's not going to score 4 touchdowns every week, but this game profiles as a shootout, and the Eagles defense doesn't look impressive. They're allowing the 27th most points and are 25th in rushing yards allowed per game. Kamara could be even more involved in passing game and non-blowout game scripts. So all the Saints pieces are wonky because they've blown out 2 teams. If this Eagles game could be more competitive, we could see a lot more PPR appeal. Saquon, who's 7,700. He looks spry and is receiving an elite workload. 20-plus rushing attempts in both games and 7 targets across the 2 games. Derrick Henry, who's 6,500. You can run on Dallas, and if the Ravens can stay ahead, Henry should be involved. He had 18 rushing attempts for 84 yards last week compared to 13 for 46 the week before. He likely needs to score 2+ touchdowns to win you tournaments, though. So, yeah, Dowdy's popular. Vibes are down on him, but we know Henry can go for 102 in any game. Josh Jacobs, who is 6,700. Currently dealing with a back ailment, but as I wrote about last week, the Packers will feed Josh Jacobs until Jordan Love returns, which is slightly possible this week. Love is practicing. I doubt he plays, but it's possible. He had 32 rushing attempts for 150 yards last week and fumbled the ball at the 1-yard line. And then James Conner, who is 6,600. His workload is elite. I don't love this matchup for the run game. Like, the Lions are more of a pass funnel. But if the Cardinals are trailing, he should be more involved in the passing game. And in a game that could be a shootout, Conner can score 2 touchdowns, whether the Lions defense is good against the run or not. Wide receiver, Ayuk at 6,200. Brandon Ayuk was always going to be in a smash spot versus the Rams. We saw both Jameson Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. torch the Rams deep. And now Deebo Samuel and maybe George Kittle will miss some time. So should be uber chalky. He's also in a good spot. Chris Olave, 6,300. The Saints had 2 wacky game scripts where they put up 40 points, blew their opponents out, and Olave didn't have a huge game. He was also tackled at the 1 yard line last week, and is too cheap. So, yeah, if the Eagles can hang with the Saints, which I assume they can, should see Olave be more involved. Tank Dell, who's only 5,200, he's just too cheap. He dropped a touchdown last week, but we were drafting him at the 3-4 turn. You're going to have better days ahead for Tank Dell soon. I'm finding out at 5,200. CeeDee Lamb, who is 8,800. He's in a smash spot versus the Ravens, who are a pest funnel. Didn't practice one day, but should be fine. Nico Collins, who is 7,300. He's leading the league in receiving yard by 50 yards and looks like an absolute stud. So Nico, absolute stud. Finding out who the Texans are going to target versus the blitz should be key here, but I'm guessing it's, if they're not trying to do the Diggs versus Minnesota narrative, I'm guessing it's Dell and Nico most weeks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's 8,200. He had 19 targets last week and now gets a bad Cardinals defense. Not a lot to say there, but he's a stud. Zay Flowers, only 6,800. He's the only receiver to have 10 plus targets in both games played so far. Kind of just the engine of the Ravens passing game. JSN, who is 5,400. He saw 16 targets last week. Jalen Ramsey should be on DK Metcalf more, leading me to assume they'll target JSN to move the chains. Pretty cheap himself. Calvin Ridley, who's only 6K. He's had 50 plus receiving yards against tough defenses and now gets an easier matchup. I'd mostly want to play him in Ridley and Levis steps, though. This is beatbestball.com, brother. This is the site that I run. Here, I linked it for you, A-Rod. Rashid Shaheed, who is 5,300. The great thing about Olave and Shaheed, despite the fact they're both fast and capable of winning deep, is the Saints are playing 2 tight ends a lot, meaning Shaheed and Olave aren't competing against other wide receiver for targets. Shaheed's also getting more layup targets this year, and the Eagles secondary hasn't been great. So Shaheed in the past has been like a deep A-dot guy only, and he still has that in his bag of tricks, but he's also getting some slants. And again, for both Shaheed and Olave, it's great news that the Saints are barely playing a third wide receiver. They're competing against Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill for targets, which is pretty good for them. Tight end. George Kittle, 5,700. No Deebo means good things for Kittle. And then I had to update it. Kittle might not miss this game due to injury, something to monitor. So, yeah, clearly don't play Kittle if he's not going to play this game, guys. Trey McBride, who's 6,200. He's received target totals of 6 and 9, and the Cardinals should be forced to pass more this week. So, yeah, McBride, many people's pick for tight end 1 on the year. I still think that's up in the air, but I like McBride a lot. Brock Bowers, who's 5,400. Still not playing a full complement of snaps, but with the Raiders looking like a surprising dink and dunk offense, Bowers is always in play. Target totals of 9 and 8 and 50-plus yards in both games played. Dallas Goedert, who's 4,600. With no A.J. Brown played, with no A.J. Brown, he played 70 of 72 snaps and tied Devonta Smith in routes run. He only had 4 targets, but should be have better days ahead. Isaiah Likely is 4,700. Capable of spiking any week, and the Ravens should pass more this week. Also, Mark Andrews at 4,800. See above, but it's Mark Andrews instead. I still slightly prefer Likely until I see Andrews lighting it up. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's a coin flip between those two. Jake Ferguson, who's 4,500. He might not play, but if he does, he should be the Cowboys' second target most weeks. Juwan Johnson, who's 3,500. He only ran 4 routes compared to Foster Moreau's 10 and Taysom Hill's 7. Shaheed was number 1, by the way, at 17. I'm just hoping that in a more competitive game that we see more Juwan for the Saints. So, yeah, my read on it is that, like, Juwan is kind of the third wide receiver for the Saints, and the Saints have 2 blowouts, so that's why he barely played. And maybe it's Foster Moreau, but yeah, I think Juwan is a good bet if this game does go off to fall in the end zone. Jordan Akins, who's 3K, he only had one target on 20 routes run, which was number 4 in the Browns. If Njoku misses again, you could do worse. So didn't get there last week, but he is a cheap punt tight end. Colby Parkinson, 3,600, continues to play a lot and run a lot of routes, and now there's no Cooper Kupp to go along with Puka Nacua. Possibly we see him more involved because of that. Defense, Browns, who are 3,800. Elite defense meets bad quarterback in Daniel Jones. Bucks, who's 3K. Bo Nix meets the blitz-heavy Bucks. Let's see what happens. 49ers, who are 3,500. If people are going to be playing the cheap Ram wide receiver replacements, simply playing the 49ers defense and hoping the Rams fail seems appealing. 49ers defense also a little bit of leverage off of Jordan Mason and Brandon Ayuk, where if they're scoring defensive touchdowns, that obviously means the skill players aren't. Texans at 3K. I think the Texans defense has some talent, and we know the Vikings will pass the ball. Looking forward to seeing Justin Jefferson versus Derek Stingley. The Titans, who are 2,700. I think the Titans defense just seems good, and they're probably getting Malik Willis at quarterback, which if the Packers are able to run the ball, that's not what we want. But if we can force Malik Willis to pass, that's a good sign for the defense. Seahawks at 3,500, facing a backup quarterback who's going to pass a lot. Seems like a no-brainer. Raiders 3,700. Andy Dalton should improve the Panthers, but it's still the Panthers. Bears, who are 2,600. Richardson will make some mistakes, and the Bears defense is legit good. They're my favorite paydown option. Steelers, who's 3,300, could be facing the Chargers without Justin Herbert, even if not, they're a good unit. Cowboys, who are 3,400. We know Lamar will eat some sacks, and this game could see a lot of pass attempts, which lead to defensive opportunities. So, yeah, Micah Parsons still there. Cowboys defense can still get pick sixes and such. So, I think they're decent. Some leverage spots in game 3 plays. Number 1, this takes stones, but full fade the 49ers. If Kittle plays, so many lineups should have at least one of Jordan Mason, Brandon Ayuk, or George Kittle. And for good reason. These guys are all great plays. But building lineups without them and hoping that game's low scoring has you competing against far less teams. 2, game stack an appealing game, but play a low-owned piece. So ideas include building a Cardinals-Lions game stack by having Greg Dortch, Sam Laporta, or Michael Wilson in the stack. Or building a Cowboys-Raven game stack, but including Isaiah Likely, Jalen Tolbert, or Rashad Bateman. So game stacking these games should be popular, but like a chalky Cardinals-Lions stack is probably like, Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not as many people are going to throw in Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch or Sam Laporta after putting up a stinker. So getting some low-owned pieces in appealing games is a great way to play it. Number 3, play the players who seem a little too expensive. There's a lot of value on this slate with guys like Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Mason, Zach Charbonnet, and Chris Olave sticking out. To me, that means people will be less likely to click on Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7,400 or Kyron Williams and Jonathan Taylor at 7,100 and 7,300. Playing these players who feel a little bit too expensive for their roles should get you a low-owned piece, and we know they're all still capable of huge ceiling games. So, yeah, like in a cash game, I'd rather play Chris Olave at 6,300 compared to Marvin Harrison Jr. at 7,400. But so will the field, because it's just like, why spend an extra 1,100 on Marvin Harrison Jr. when you can play Chris Olave? And so this is always viable, but playing the guys who just feel a little too expensive, like Marvin Harrison Jr. felt a little too expensive last week. That's why he was 3% up. 4, game stack an exciting game with a cheap quarterback. So like the winning team from last week, building a Will Levis, Calvin Ridley stack or Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson stack, and game stacking pieces from Cardinals, Lions, Cowboys, Ravens seems like a great way to get exposure to many games, and people should be doing this less often. So yeah, most people who do a Cardinals Lions stack are going to have Goff or Kyler as the quarterback. So pay down at quarterback, jam more studs in your lineup, and still get exposure to these games is always viable and unique. 5, Game Stack, a less appealing game. Ownership for Game Stack should flock to Detroit and Arizona, Saints and Philly, Baltimore and Dallas, and Minnesota and Houston. And for good reason. These are the appealing games. Game stacking, a less popular game, and hoping those games fizzle out or scoring flows through low end players is a way to separate from the field. If I was doing this, my favorites would be Seattle and Miami. Like, I could see this game. You get like an Achan, Charbonnet, Tyreek, JSN stack, and you just hope that Miami's still functional. Maybe even play Skylar Thompson. Or you go Indy and Chicago, and you hope that like Richardson and DJ Moore, something like that. Las Vegas and Carolina, like a Gardner Minshew, Bowers stack with Deontay, or Andy Dalton, Johnson stack with Bowers. Like, not many people are going to be doing this. Or Green Bay and Tennessee, like Levis, Calvin Ridley, Jaden Reed, something like that. Shouldn't be as popular. And even, like, can Jaden Reed catch a 5-yard catch and go rumble 80 yards to a touchdown? Yes, he can do that. So, way to get unique from the field. Number 6, paying up for quarterback. I'm expecting Lamar and Hurts to be relatively low owned, with cheaper options also being appealing, like Purdy and Kyler or Derek Carr. Like, I think people would rather play Derek Carr than Jalen Hurts. So, and we know Lamar and Hurts can go for 40 in any given week, and they shouldn't be popular. Number 7, play lineups with 4 wide receivers or even 2 tight ends. With all the talk being about passing rates being down, running rates being up, my intuition is 3 running back lineups should be popular this week. You also have 2 very cheap and appealing workhorses that should be very high owned, with Zach Charbonnet and Jordan Mason. If we knew the field was going to predominantly be playing 3 RB lineups, I'd like to pivot to 4 wide receiver lineups or even 2 tight end and compete with less builds. So this is in the same vein as like last week where I said you could build balanced and not compete with the stars and scrubs teams, which were more chalky. A lot of teams are going to jam in Charbonnet, Mason, and then a third running back. And so just doing, like maybe too expensive. Like if you built a Kyron, Jonathan Taylor, 4 wide receiver lineup, you're super unique. You're competing against way less teams. You're just making it easier to win on yourself if those pieces go off. Number 8, and I gave a bunch of like one-offs here about how to take advantage of specific chalk. So Kyren Williams plus Rams defense. Another way to play against the 49ers chalk is to fire up a low on Kyren and the Rams defense and hope the Rams win. Like public appeal is that the Rams are 0% to win. That's just not true. The Rams could win this game, and it would probably be because Kyren Williams is catching balls, running hard, and the Rams defense gets some turnovers. David Montgomery and the Lions defense. Again, with Kyler Murray probably being kind of chalky, firing up David Montgomery in the Lions defense and hoping the Lions simply beat up on the Cardinals and run the ball in the second half seems appealing as well. Again, this is a way to take advantage of the Kyler stacks, which I assume he'll be the pay-up quarterback of choice. And then Saquon and the Eagles defense. Derek Carr doubles with Olave and Shaheed should be pretty popular. So Saquon plus Eagles defense is just hoping that the Saints come back to earth, and this is a way to separate yourself. I usually add punt options here, but I forgot to do that. So I'll probably go back and edit that later. But what I would say there is make sure the number one thing to monitor is George Kittle's health. That puts Juwan Jennings more in play as a punt. The Rams wide receivers without Kupp and Puka, mainly Demarcus Robinson, Jordan Whittington. These guys are all appealing. Tyler Johnson. And then if Joe Mixon misses, which he might, Dameon Pierce also might miss. So Cam Akers is going to be a cheap punt running back you could play as well. Again, the Vikings defense, they blitz heavy. It's hard to get there on the ground against them, but that would put him firmly in play as a punt. How many leverage levers did you pull in your lineup last week? I played a CeeDee Lamb, a Monra lineup, which those 2 players were great because it got off a Cooper Kupp, but I didn't have Kamara, so it didn't matter. Like, you didn't have Kamara, you weren't doing anything, It was good to find ways to have Kupp fail, But yeah, just it doesn't really matter when a player scores 40. And Lamb and Amon-Ra scored good, but they didn't score enough for their salary. So I'll definitely post my lineup going forward, Deshaun, so we can look at it. All right, guys, that's what I got there. I think I'm going to do some underdog drafts. Let me know any questions. I'll hang around and we'll get to. Going to be doing some dog bowl drafts, etc. Again, I'm going to be streaming chess later. If you guys like my content, please help me out and subscribe to Liam Teaches Chess on YouTube. Excited to be getting going there. Let's kick this off with the dog bowl. And yeah, I saw people asking questions in chat. I didn't want to interrupt me reading the article to get to them. So if you have questions, now is a better time to ask them. Appreciate you, Joseph. Become a YouTube member like Joseph. So my recommendation to you guys is if you are drafting these seriously, either the dog bowl or the battle royales, I would definitely recommend you draft early in the week before things settle. For example, my first dog bowl was this one where I took Zach Charbonnet as my last pick before people and people were not people were not hip to the fact that Ken Walker might not play. So Zach Charbonnet's ADP was weird. Devon Achan's ADP was weird. And so I built this team, which I quite like. Not my highest projected, but more people now Charbonnet goes as like a 3rd round pick. So I got him as a last round pick. He goes as a higher pick now. So obviously you just can't recreate that. And same with Achan, like his ADP's in the 1st round. It was in the 2nd round. Charbonnet goes off in the 30s now. So like around here. Looking forward to a healthy, high-scoring week. This is like, if you looked at my exposures, you would maybe assume I built for this week because I have a ton of George Kittle. And I do have a lot of George Kittle too, but I have a ton of Brandon Ayuk and Jamar Chase. And they are both like in nutted matchups where Jamar Chase gets the Commanders defense this week. That's like the ultimate nuts. And Brandon Ayuk gets the Rams and all the 49ers are rolled out. So I built for week 3, guys. Looking forward to them both having good games. I'm a little worried with Ayuk that with so many 49ers ruled out, he gets more attention than he otherwise would. And I don't think he needed the help. But yeah, I think he's going to be a positive regression candidate regardless. So looking forward to this week. Mahomes and Saquon for Brees and Kyler. Definitely prefer Brees over Saquon. I don't know, Elijah. Probably not. I mean, doubtful, man. Like the running backs are not going to be inefficient. Teams are going to dare the Chiefs to run. I quite am like people are harping on Carson Steele's 40-yard dash time. I don't get that. Like I've not seen a lot of statistical significance in 40-yard dash time. You know, like all else equal, would I rather my running back run a 4.140? Sure. But the thing we care about more is your 10-yard split. And the reason is because that's more an indication of how explosive you are. And I've listened to GM videos where I've heard the GM cite the 10-yard split recently. They're not talking about the 40. So Carson Steele has a fine 10-yard split. He just doesn't have long speed. So is he going to go score a 60-yard touchdown? No, he will not. But he has a 1.6-yard 10-yard split. Ramondre Stevens a 1.67. Similar weight here. So I think they're fair comps. And then here's some other examples. These guys all have faster 40-yard dash times, Kyron, Singletary, Hunt, Ramondre, but a lot of them are lighter than Steele. Like Steele's a much bigger back than them, except for Ramondre. And then Steele has a faster 10-yard split than Devin Singletary, Ramondre. He has pretty much the same 10-yard split of Kareem Hunt, a pretty similar one to Kyron, who again is 20 pounds lighter. So Steele being like a one cut and run running back, I think is going to have a lot of success. Like teams are daring teams to run. He's a violent runner. He's going to break through tackles. He's going to score goal line touchdowns, and he's going to be involved in the passing game somewhat. So I'm quite excited for Steele. I kept on drafting him after the Pirine signing, and I said this on stream many times where it's like the upside thesis is nowhere near dead. He always had outs to Pacheco getting injured, which of course happened. Pacheco's probably out for the year, guys. And then he yeah, I just thought he'd be involved. Another thing I wrote about was some market inefficiencies. Feel pretty good about how that's broken. T. Higgins, no, because he's not been playing, so that one stinks. Romadunze, no. But the good ones have been the Jets secondary pieces. Now, Alan Lazard is cucking everyone right now, but the Jets look good, and that was the thesis of this. And the other ones that feel really good is, well, the valuable wide receiver threes. Yeah, I think you're, in best ball, having a Yoshi Voss, having a Jalen Tolbert. But the one that feels really good is me saying that, like, Pacheco was going as a 2-3 turn pick, and we were still drafting James Cook at the 6th round, the back end of the 5th. Rashad White, he doesn't look as great. Ken Walker was also in the mix here. What else did I write about here? Paying up for Chiefs ambiguity. Yeah, I also thought that was pretty bad. Like, I think Rice is the one you wanted here. I think Worthy is the one you'll want. I don't know about Kelsey, an expensive Kelsey. I don't know about an expensive Pacheco. Obviously got hurt. And the Packers pieces would have been smashed if Love was healthy, but he's not. So, see, we're back on the clock here. Oh, why not? Let's take Kyler and just try to figure out a stack. We'll take some ugly player to stack him with. Deneric Prince is a practice squad running back on the Dolphins. So, hey, Austin, brother. I'm jealous. Ended up as the biggest Carson Steele owner. Yeah, I mean, you got to be stoked with that. I don't have as much as you simply because I have Carson Steele in like all of my DK Millie makers. I guess I should make a pick here. I have like Carson Steele in like every single one of my DK Millie makers because I did most of my drafts then. Same reason why like I had Jordan Mason ranked so in the 150s since the beginning of August. I only have like 6% though in Best Ball Mania 5 because I only did like 50 drafts in August of BBM. And then, yeah, like Carson Steele, if I did all my drafts in August, I also probably would have had like a huge bag of him. But I do have a huge bag of him in the DK Millie Maker. And we haven't like advance rate wise, guys, we have not felt the impact of so many things. Like Debo teams are overinflated. Kamara teams are way overinflated. 60% advance rate. Jordan Mason teams are under advanced right now. They're a strong advance rate at 30%, but nailing the 49ers starting running back at as late of a, like I took him in the 18th round, literally. We have not felt the full impact of that yet. Carson Steele and Pirine, whoever is the winner there, we haven't felt the impact of that yet. I would play Steele over Eckler if I needed a big game. If I need just like 5 to 6 points. The great thing about this decision, Andrea, is you have info before you decide because the Bengals play either Sunday night or Monday night, and so do the Chiefs. So you get to see how your team scores and then you can decide between Eckler or Steele for your team. I could see the Chiefs trading like Ramondre Stevenson, man. That would be a good trade for them. Not great for my bags, but I want to look up the Carson Steele Austin. Oh, no, that's not how I do it. Are you Banda Bear? Good for you, man. I'm jealous. Yeah, for like 0 running back, it was so like Steele still went as a 20th round pick in the DK Millie Maker. I have heavy Josh Downs bag. Do you think his upside is limited by the success of Alec Pierce? I think it's going to take Downs a little bit to get on the field. Passing will always be a little suspect, but I think Downs could still emerge as the #1 target earner on the Colts. So I don't know who's going to like. I don't know who's going to be squeezed. I really don't. Alec Pierce is playing well. Like, probably doesn't get squeezed. Carson Steele or Zamir White? I think you have to fire up Zamir White against the Panthers. Like, this is, if there's going to be a week they're able to establish the run, it has to be this week. But I'm playing Steele over like Rico Dowdle. I'm playing him. Yeah, I'm playing him at spots. I'm going to play a FanDuel lineup with Steele too. He's 5,200 there. Why not? Yes. Remember, I took Zach Charbonnet in the 6th round with pick like 64, 63. Goes as a 2nd round pick. So drafting early, a huge edge. Just like it can be in BBM, you know, not always. I think we'll go Pollard, needing a running back. Pretty big tier break after them. Him in my mind. Pretty good matchup too. And then I want this pick to be either Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch. So gonna rip a tight end here with that in mind. Take Likely. Not really worried about getting sniped on Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch, obviously. Both those guys are going to be drafted like 2% or lower. No, like 0.5%. I guess I don't need, like, you could play Kyler naked as just a rushing, but I'd rather, you'd rather just try to get Marvin fails, McBride fails, Kyler throws 2 touchdowns to whoever. So Greg Dortch is the better play in the sense that the Lions have been beating up by slot guys, but I kind of like think Michael Wilson has a little bit more touchdown equity. Steele or McLaurin in half-point PPR? I think you have to give McLaurin one more chance, man, but it is close. Brian, that is another one where you can see how both those teams play late. So you're going to have information before you decide that one. Like if you're deciding whether to fire up, like the floor is low on Steele, to be clear, but the Chiefs play Sunday night and the Bengals play Monday night. I guess we're getting 2 Monday night games. And so they better not mess with my Bills coverage. But you can see how your team and your opponent's team scores and then make that decision. Like if you need 30 points to win, probably fire up Terry. If you just need 10, I think they're both playable. Terry's still getting targets despite doing nothing. I took a lot of Josh Downs too, man. I somehow didn't end up with a lot of Rashid. Like I thought I was drafting a lot of Rashid Shaheed, and I was. It was just in DraftKings because Shaheed really fell at the end of the season due to injury, and I guess in Best Ball Mania I wasn't getting as much because I was taking running backs at that round because I built a lot of team 0 RB, so I built a lot of my teams extreme. And I'm always of the mindset like, look, I'm trying to advance teams, but I'd rather advance a unique team that has more win equity versus advance every team I can. That's just personally how I play it. Like we're trying to win $1.5 million in Best Ball Mania 5. I only advanced 19 teams the year I won BBM 2. 13%. That's 6 teams below expectation. I advanced 51 teams in the DraftKings Millie Maker last year. I got 0 teams to the finals. So I advanced over a third of my teams last year. Got no teams to the finals. So yeah, playoff wackiness matters a lot more versus strict advance rate. God, this can be painfully slow. We're going to do some battle royales after this. I think I'm going to jump over to my chess channel and stream some chess games after this. So if you want to hang out, I'll tag the Discord with the live stream. Trying to grow that channel as well. Yeah, I don't know. They're both fine darts. We're doing Michael Wilson though. Like I know Dortch has the better schematic matchup, but I think Wilson has a little bit more touchdown equity. I just want to name these. It won't let me name them. So I know I either did all these with Davis. I'm just going to DM this to Davis so that I know for my records. Okay. DM those to Davis in case I ship this week. A good problem to have. Let's do 10 battle royales. Drake May starting next game. I highly doubt they start him against the 49ers, but I think the week after, yeah, we could see that. If you guys were only entering one DraftKings lineup this week, which quarterback are you playing? Or FanDuel? I don't know why it does auto draft. Is there like a setting we can turn out? I'm in the next 10, by the way, if you want to draft against me. I know some people do. Yeah, he's getting absolutely lit up, man. So don't know how long he can be the starter, but he is. Wow, Justice Hill got a extension. Weird time to do that. Maybe they're opening up salary. Yeah, I'm playing Purdy in my main team. It will feel bad when, like, I don't know, Kyler goes for 40 or something, but whatever, man. We'll go Monra. We'll go Lamb easily. Thought the Jets looked pretty good last night. Gonna be excited for the like. I think that Bills Jets game, people stayed away for like weather reasons and such. Um, and because of little Marvin correlation. Because of weather and because of the Jets defense, I think that game would be higher drafted if people could go back. Let's do Achan and Nico. Uh no, let's do Mason this time. I would play Tank Dell over Najee every week of my life. Wow. I mean, I think when you could get Tyreek as a third pick, you just need to do it. Give me a break. Purdy doesn't play till Monday, so he doesn't really count. But yeah, I would be playing Burrow too against the Commanders D. It doesn't matter the matchup to me. I would just blindly play Tank Dell over. Let's do Gibbs. People are super down on JT after one game. Like I was not a JT guy going into the year, but it does seem like a little bit silly of an overreaction. Wow, Dak with a lower ADP than Purdy. Our team is sick, man. We have Justin Fields. This should be chalky start, but gotta have one. Our team's 1-1, but really sick squad with a lot of depth. Gotta get unique sometimes. Is Kittle ruled out? Like, I've not seen an update there. I also don't know that I know there's something where if you draft a player and he's ruled out, you get a swap, but there might be something to be said that if you draft a player and he already has a Q tag, you don't get the swap. So I don't know how it exactly works. Sometimes it randomly scrolls on me. Let's do Hurts for first. Gotta get a Saquon team. Let's do Gibbs. Let's do Dak. And the most hated man alive, JT. Achan. If you draft someone who is doubtful, you can't swap. What about so like I Kittle's like listed with a Q tag, I think. You definitely can swap a Q. So like Kittle would be swapped for me, you're saying? Whatever. We'll find out. Derek Carr. Yeah, an autoed Saquon, fine with me there. I think I need a quarterback here. Doubtful or out, it doesn't swap. Q, it does. Okay, good to know. Little Saints Eagle stack here. I don't think Devonta should go ahead of Ayuk. Yeah, the computer just swaps for us, is my assumption. Let's go with Dak and Mr. Henry. Probably could have waited on Dak, but whatever. Go Olave as a bring back to Saquon. Let's get Kyler. Let's do the Eagles double. I guess Nico's fallen because of the Q tag. That's insane. So you do enough of these, you'll get some of that. Let's do the Cowboys double too. Actually, no, let's do Goddard. Aha. Well, don't worry, Vadim. I don't even look at that, so. Let's do Charbonnet. And, yep, Stroud. Devontae auto seems fine with me. Olave. I think Davis was in that one. Sure. Bowers. We're doing great. No cap Mac. Gonna be streaming some chess later. Let's go Kyron. Actually, Zay Flowers my dude as well, so. Oh, but dang, I had Derrick Henry on that one. Whatever. Unique. Unique, he screams. I don't think people are going to build 3 wide receiver lineups as much, especially on this. So get you some uniqueness. Where do you have Rodgers rest of season? I mean, not a huge change there. Like he's gonna be in a slow offense. I don't know if we actually learned as much as people are thinking we learned about them beating up on arguably the worst team in football. You know, he's not, he's not a huge fantasy quarterback, but like I was pretty high on him in best ball, and I'm happy about it. I haven't historically volume draft battle royales or any of the daily drafts. Just get some in, especially when I want to hang out with you guys. Bring me home, Juwan. Juwan Johnson winning me 30K this week. A little correlation against Saquon. Probably Dell. Very nice. Very nice, but like I got Nico all the way, like the Lamb guy passed on him. And this guy can't even take a quarterback, so might as well take someone else. We'll do Kyron. A little correlation there. Late slate only. What's up top in those, Billy? No, I think you did win by a landslide. Pittman, Pitts, and Jacoby Myers for Bowers and Metcalf. Yeah, I think you crushed. You get a tight end who's going to be in the running for tight end 1. And Metcalf, who just seems like a much better player than Pittman and Myers, future included. And there's so many drafting options. I really haven't done many of them. Eventually, they should launch their Resurrection Best Ball too. Maybe. Let's see. My dog bowls. This one's projected for a cool 69. That's the one I did with Davis. My highest projected is this Jared Goff, Jonathan Taylor, Monroe Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, Dallas Goedert team. I don't know why my battle royales aren't populating. I think I just have to refresh. If anyone's not up and running on Underdog Fantasy, promo code Cheslium. Let's see. Highest projected one we got is this bad boy at 83. Dak, Lamb, Ayuk, Goddard, JT, Gibbs. Don't remember Vadim, being honest with you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I got for you today. Check out beatbestball.com. Go check out Liam Teaches Chess. If you'd like to join my Discord, the link to join is below. Gonna stream some chess later, maybe soon. Probably go for a walk or something. Good luck this weekend to me, to you. Let's have a great, healthy, high-scoring week. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend. Peace out.